You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
All right, welcome back. Another episode of 91 Reasons. Listen to my voice, man. I was at Disneyland all day yesterday because, you know, nothing's better than a day off from Not Scary Farm than spending it at another gigantic theme park filled with people and strollers and screaming children. Had a good time. Really did. Actually didn't do much. The crowds were so large that I didn't actually do much. But listen to my voice, man. I should go to the theme park more often because I'm going to sound just like Doug Barnes on the season pass. His voice is so radio sounding as Doug Barnes. I can't do it. I end up sounding like Wolfman Jack if I try to do it. I don't have that cool radio voice. But you're not tuning in for the cool radio voice, right? You're tuning in for movie and film dissection and pop culture celebration. And that's what we do here on 91 Reasons. Now, I do have to say a big thank you yesterday to my friend David, who got us into the Aladdin show, which was fantastic. We had front row seats. Got to see a good friend of mine, not a good friend, but a guy I know, Scott, played Jafar. So that was really cool. I even sort of squinted and saw what part Robin played, another friend of mine, when he was in the Aladdin show. And a little bittersweet, too, only because you watch the Aladdin show and all you can think of is Robin Williams, so that's a real bummer. But the show was great, and then David also managed to get us into really great seats in quotes, for World of Color, a show I said I would never wait in line for, and I'm sticking to that. I would never wait in line for a water show, but Dave was kind enough to hook up some great seats for it, so we got to see it waiting only about 15, 20 minutes instead of the 2 hours that most people wait. And I don't have the theme park patience for that, having worked at one and even worked at Disneyland very briefly. I just don't have time for that. I don't have zero patience. But Disneyland was a lot of fun. We went on Star Tours. And, Star Tours has that randomizer on it, so you never know which sequence you're going to get. And sometimes we've gotten really good sequences all in a row. And by good, I mean original trilogy. Yesterday, all we got was Kashyyyk and Coruscant. And, oh, God, was it terrible. The ride's fun and, it does what it's supposed to do. But if you're not engaged by the material itself, all the pretty wrapping paper in the world is not going to make it any better. So we also ended up getting, there's a point where they reveal who the Rebel spy is, and then there's a hologram, in quotes, that appears in the cabin. And, the Yoda one's pretty good. The Carrie Fisher one's amazing, because whoever's doing that voice really nailed Carrie Fisher's voice. But, man, we got Admiral Akbar, and he looks terrible. Whoever animated that did not work long enough. You know what he looks like? He is the animated equivalent of the Microsoft Word paperclip. The one that says, "Hey, I noticed you're writing a letter." That's the Admiral Akbar. That's what he looked like. He looked terrible. His mouth just went up and down like a puppet. Like even the one in Return of the Jedi, which is a puppet, enunciates to some degree. And if you've ever seen from Star Wars to Jedi, the making of a saga, you see the guy enunciating, no ship can penetrate it. He's working on it. This cartoon one looks like, look, we got Yoda, we got Leia done. Somebody do Akbar. You got time? Before lunch? All right, good. Johnson's got it before lunch. That's what it looked like. But you're not tuned in here for Disneyland talk, are you? That could be a whole other episode. And isn't that what I do? Is tease whole other episodes, Jeremy? Is someday I'll get to all these episodes? Somebody who's listening to these should put together a list of all the episodes I have said I'm going to do. That way I don't miss any. And put it on the Facebook page so I can get to some of these. I got home late last night, and I was intent on watching a movie so that I could have something to talk about today. Because, during Not Scary Farm, I work really long hours, and my brain turns to mush. And it's very strange to be standing somewhere talking movies with somebody and not be able to come up with the actor, the director, the studio, the release date, whatever. Because normally I just rattle that stuff off. But I've had a lot of trouble the last couple of weeks, only because I'm not getting any sleep. I'm getting 5 hours of sleep, maybe, if I'm lucky, and then I'm right back at it. So bear with me when I say that I had to watch the movie last night just to get a refresher course. And I could have watched, I was going to catch up on Batman and do Batman Begins, but, it's so long. And I just knew I would end up falling asleep, and no one wants to hear my half-asleep review of Batman Begins, 9 years after the fact, right? No, instead, let's go all the way back to 1995. 19 years to review Kevin Smith's second directorial film, Mallrats. Now, I have to say, it's easy to pick on a movie like Batman and Robin, where it's just universally loathed, and the people who like it are looked at with strange and accusatory looks. You like what? You like Batman and Robin? What's wrong with you? Were you dropped on your head as a child? But when you talk about a movie like Mallrats, a lot of people like this movie. This is a bona fide cult classic. And by cult classic, it means when it came out in the theaters, it bombed tragically, but found a home on home video release where people could be free to watch it again and again and again, where it would gain cult-like status, where people would put on their copies of Mallrats, light candles, and chant Kevin Smith's name in hushed tones. Oh, Kevin Smith, we worship at the altar of Kevin Smith. And why do I say that? Because I've worshipped at the altar of Kevin Smith. I've seen every one of his movies. I have quoted them incessantly. But even a guy like me can look at a movie like Mallrats, and even here's the thing with Mallrats. Before we even start, and even though we're almost 7 minutes into this thing, we're going to have to say right off the bat, I'm gonna destroy this movie a bit, because it's always gotten a pass. And it's gotten a pass because we really like Clerks. And when you really like a film like Clerks, and then you make a movie like Mallrats that's constantly referencing Clerks again and again, it gets a little bit of a pass. But if you look at Walmart, the hell? See, there it is, folks. I'm really tired. If you look at Mallrats just on the basis as a standalone film, it's pretty mediocre. It's pretty bad. It's almost as bad and cloying as as Empire Records. And I think Empire Records is actually better. We talked about Empire Records last show because it was the big studio answer to Clerks. Well, this is Kevin Smith's big studio answer to Clerks. And, oh, man, was I excited for this movie when it was announced. I remember I used to get Wizard magazine every month at the comic book store. And gosh, there were some issues of Wizard. This is obviously way pre-internet. This is the only way you got comic, movie, toy news. And Wizard sometimes was as big as a Sears Christmas catalog, man. It was huge. Those year-end issues of Wizard were enormous. And I love every page of Wizard. I think I still have them. I have like 30, 40, maybe more issues of Wizard tucked in the closet that I just can't let go of, because I can remember carting them around to work and reading them incessantly over and over again. And in one issue of Wizard, there was an ad for Mallrats, coming soon, Mallrats. And it was just Jay and Silent Bob with one of those 3D magic eye pictures as the ad. So if you squinted at it long enough, the Mallrats logo appeared in 3D. And you know what? This was really cool marketing, because you had to know who the characters were, want to spend time with them on the page, because you had to stare at that thing, no matter, depending on how good you were at the magic eye, you had to stare at that thing for quite a while to get it to work. And when it worked, it was really cool because it was the logo of the movie in 3D. 3D before Avatar. But we saw the ad for Mallrats, and we knew it was coming. And the nerd stuff covered it not in depth, but at least pretty well to know that, hey, Kevin Smith, that guy that made that weird black and white movie, yeah, he's got a new one coming out next year, 95, this year. It's coming out in October. And it's got Jay and Silent Bob in it again? Oh, this is going to be great. And I think that the trailer even showed Brian O'Halloran, who was playing Gil Hicks. Of course, we didn't know that at the time. So I'll be honest. This is one of those things where Mallrats upset me because I was reviewing the movie I wanted and not the movie that I got. Because I wanted a sequel to Clerks. I wanted the same kind of pop culture analysis by Dante and Randall, and maybe what I wanted was the same movie. Maybe I wanted Clerks at the mall, because I worked at the mall and I knew what it was like to be there all day, every day, and to watch the Mallrats who had no lives, who were just at the mall to hang out. So this was different because this was the other side. In Clerks, the retailers are the good guys and the customers are the a-holes. You can't believe the barrage of stupid questions I get here. What do you mean there's no ice? I got to drink this coffee hot? And in Mallrats, Kevin flipped the script so that the retailers, in the form of Ben Affleck from Fashionably Male, are the bad guys, and the customers, or the people who inhabit the mall, because they're not customers, they don't buy anything, they're the good guys. And so right away it's different. Now, my main beef against Mallrats is that Brody and T.S., the two main characters, Jeremy London and Jason Lee, they're not different. They're the same guy. Watch Mallrats now and notice that each of them spews out the long-winded Kevin Smith dialogue almost the same exact way. It's wry pop culture reference, tearing things apart. Oh, a wry pop culture reference response, tearing things apart. Ooh, let's try to advance the story. And the thing with I just bumped the microphone again for those of you keeping score. Is it a drinking game yet? The problem is that let's start at the beginning, right? Mallrats opens with T.S. about to pick up Brandy to go to Universal Studios, and we eventually find out he's going to propose to her on the Jaws attraction. I have no idea where any of this came from. It's all very strange. And the movie's set up fairly quickly because right away they reference Clerks, and they reference Julie Dwyer, who Randall and Dante attempt to go to her funeral and knock her body out. So this is the day before. This takes place the day before the events of Clerks because she's been announced as dead this morning or yesterday. And the reason she's dead is swimming. But for the plot of the movie, the reason she's dead is so that Brandy will have to now fill in on the dating show at the finale of the film. And also so that she can't go on the Florida vacation. Now, it's all fairly quickly. Like, he shows up, they argue, she breaks up with him, and it's over really quick. And then they cut to Jason Lee's character in bed with Shannon Doherty. And I know this is going to upset people, and I'm sorry. I don't like Jason Lee in this movie at all. I know when the movie came out, he was the only one who really emerged unscathed because he wasn't an actor prior to this, and Kevin's dialogue is sometimes pretty difficult to get through. But the thing that I don't like about him is that first off, he's not likable. He's not likable. Anybody who was a slacker in the early 90s, and I was before I got married. By the time Mallrats came out, I was already married. But before, if you were a guy who collected comics and there was a girl who was willing to climb through your window to have sex with you, you would treat her really well. Those are really hard to find. Those are harder to find than a carded yak face. Thank you very much. nerd reference. So the idea that he's just so blasé about her and wakes up and goes right back to playing hockey on his Sega and basically ignores anything she has to say. I know that that's the plot of the movie, that he's going to somehow see the error of his ways and become a different person. Now, that never really happens in this movie, other than the symbol of that is him introducing Shannon Doherty's character to his mother. But other than that, Jason Lee's character starts out the movie as this kind of spoiled comic reading guy, and in the end, he's not changed. He's not changed at all. Now, I think the entirety of Mallrats would have been better if they'd been teenagers. You know, it's teenagers that hang out at the mall. You know, when you hit your 20s, the mall's not really the place you want to be, because you're only at the mall as a teenager because there's really nowhere else to go. You know, that's where the arcade is. That's where the music store is. That's where the food court is. And as a teenager, your options are fairly limited as to where you can hang out without getting hassled. You know, if there's a big group of kids at the park, you're going to get hassled by the cops. So the mall is relatively hassle-free except for security. But if you're in your 20s, you can go to a bar. You can go to a strip club. The options of the world are virtually limitless once you reach 21. So Mallrats to me is just like, well, why are they going to the mall? I know that's the name of the movie. It's Mallrats. But they're 20-something guys. They should be a better place to hang out, a more... the mall's for kids. I guess that's what I'm saying. You know, after age 17, I don't hang out at the mall. You go to the mall to get what you need, and you go somewhere you really want to go. So if they had been teenagers, now I know they can't be teenagers because the movie's really dirty, and we wouldn't be ready for really dirty teen movies in the 90s until 99 in American Pie. Before American Pie, teenage movies had been reduced to She's All That and Empire Records and really homogenized, squeaky clean, you know, Can't Hardly Wait, really squeaky clean, who will she pick movies. And there weren't a lot of nudity and dirty, you know, when he has relations with the pie, it sort of signaled that the teen movie had come back. And we're going to make these dirty movies. Now, I didn't know when American Pie came out that we would go down this road where it was just going to be an endless stream of male nudity and trying to outgross, not box office, but gross out, you know, nudity and body fluids. Like, that's just not my thing. You know, if American Pie were made today, he would have relations with the pie, and then the next scene would be everybody sitting down to enjoy a slice, if you know what I mean. And there'd be close-ups of people eating the pie. Oh yeah, oh it's terrible, and the audience would cringe, and that would be the movie, because that's how far we've gone. You know, in American Pie, it's innocent to some degree. Eugene Levy says, "We'll tell your mom we ate the pie," and they throw it out. They wouldn't do that now, absolutely not. But back in '95. You know, the movies like that weren't around. We're 4 years away from it. So in order to do, you know, the very brief topless scene or the implied sex scene in the elevator or just the terrible the use of language in it, they got to be 20-somethings in order for the studio to feel comfortable releasing it and for the MPAA to give it an R. So the tone of the movie is all over the place because we've got 20-somethings hanging out at the mall, and everybody talks the same. That's the one real issue I have with this movie, is that in Clerks, Dante Hicks is an uptight, by-the-book rules guy who finally takes a chance on Caitlin, and the universe smacks him down so hard. And Randall is the carefree, happy-go-lucky guy who does whatever he wants, and in the end, by doing that, ruins his friend's future. And they both learn a lesson and see things a little differently. In Mallrats, everybody spews the same pop culture reference jargon, long-winded speeches over and over and over again. Ben Affleck's character has these really, his mouth is just full of, I don't respect anybody without a shopping agenda. And it's really strange. And the other thing that Mallrats really suffers from is that they cut out like 20 minutes at the beginning. There's a whole new beginning where Brandy's dad, Mr. Svennings, is throwing a party for the governor, and there's people in costume, and T.S. accidentally fires off a shot from his musket, and everybody gets in trouble. And that makes, that the whole movie makes sense if you know this, because it makes sense for Jay to call him a killer, and it makes sense for Svenning to hate him so much, because what do fathers hate most? Guys with no idea for the future, no prospects, and they're only looking at the daughter for one thing. Now, that's not the case in this movie. At the beginning, T.S.'s intention is to marry her. He's not trying to score with the prom queen on the big night. He's not like got a notch on his bedpost like, that's the girl I'm going to get. No. He wants to marry her. What father would be upset with that? You want to marry my daughter? Are you serious? That's a noble thing. So he hates him because of the governor's ball being sabotaged. And it also explains why, for no apparent reason in the movie, when you call the cops, they arrest people just for hanging out at the mall. T.S. and Brody are just arrested for no reason. The cops are called. They show up. Security is running after them. Like, it doesn't make any sense unless this is the guy that tried to kill the governor the night before. Then he's a known criminal. He's a known suspect. We got to keep an eye on this guy. So it suffers from it. But you know why they cut it. You can't make a movie called Mallrats and then not get to the mall until 30 minutes in. Then people are like, well, are they ever going to get to the mall? That's why in Jurassic Park, you see the, I'm going to say Brontosaurus, but I know the name's been changed to Brachiosaurus. When I was a kid, they were Brontosauruses. So like Pluto being a planet, they remain Brontosauruses to me. Sorry. But that's why they show you those dinosaurs right when they get to the island. Because if they had waited till the tour, we would have all been like Ian Malcolm by saying, are there going to be any dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour? So if you name a movie a certain thing, you got to get to it. You got to get to it. Unless you're doing a movie like say Music Box, which I'm sure nobody in this audience has seen, which is about a guy being tried for Nazi war crimes. And the Music Box in question doesn't even show up till the last 6 or 7 minutes of the movie, But it was written by Joe Esterhaus, so I had to go see Music Box, because at the time I was a Joe Esterhaus fan. Not so much anymore. But at the time, the guy was the highest paid screenwriter in the world, so his movies you paid attention to, especially if you were a writer. But Mallrats continues. They go to the mall. I'm trying to breeze through the plot. I mean, if you are listening to this podcast, you know the plot, so it's not doing you any service by encapsulating the movie again and again, right? But here's the reasons I don't dig it, and then you can just rattle them off. First off, what the hell happened to Jay and Silent Bob? Why is this movie a cartoon? It's just a goofy, silly cartoon movie, and Jay and Silent Bob are like front and center of the reasons, especially Jay. This is, I said it in the beginning, this is the big studio version of Clerks. And the fact that the guy who made Clerks is at the helm makes it even sadder, because watch Jay in the movie. Like, who is that? In the first film, Jay's understated. He says some funny stuff. He invites Dante to go get high and then yells at him when he's rebuffed. In this one, he's reduced to just catchphrases. Snoochies, boochies. And I don't know if... Well, I know that there was some contention that maybe Jay Muse shouldn't play Jay, which is stupid, and they were going to hire somebody else. But thankfully, that didn't happen. But why is he directed to be this cartoon character, this one-liner spouting caricature of the guy from the first movie. If they're indeed the same characters, why would you do that? And then they keep showing blueprints of how they're going to sabotage the dating show at the mall, and I don't know what we're looking at. I don't know why it's in there. And Silent Bob swinging through the mall, fly, fat ass fly. Here's the thing. This is the big thing about Mallrats. We like it because it has all these people we know in it, and it keeps referencing Clerks. And we give Kevin Smith a pass because we knew watching it, we were going to watch it again and again and again. And I'm guilty of that. I've watched the movie 30, 40 times. I just watched it last night on my anniversary edition signed by Kevin Smith that my friend Romo got me. Thank you. He bought it at the stash even. But the movie gets a pass because movies that are familiar to us don't fall under the microscope. But just look at the direction of this movie. And there's a moment where, Brody is going to the mall to lick his wounds, but also to get comics, right? So we know there's going to be a comic shop in the mall. And the scene where they finally get to the comic shop, Brody says, what's going on? Why can't I buy comics? And then he's shown having a scuffle with Walt and Steve Dave. And it's all very funny and very familiar because we like everybody. But there's no direction to the scene. He says, why can't I get comics? But then they don't show us until a few beats later that there's a line in front of the store. And the way that movies are supposed to be directed, you show the character walking up and then the conflict of why he can't get in and then the reaction. Instead, we got the reaction and then a few beats later, much longer than you should, the reason why he can't get in is that Stanley is signing and that there's a line. But it's all done really weird. And I think that it's not Kevin Smith's fault. It's the fact that this was, at $6 million, a really low-budget movie. Even for the time, that's low budget. And I don't think they had extras. I don't think they had a lot of extras. Because if you look at the scenes in the outside world that aren't in the mall, there's nobody. It's almost as if there's been an apocalypse. They drive the streets and there's nobody. They park in the parking lot and there's nobody. And I know that the mall that they filmed at, I think, was out of business. So everything they had to do, they had to populate themselves. And that's a huge undertaking for a low-budget movie. So they did the best that they could. But the world still looks, pretty empty. There's a similar problem in a movie called Sex and Death 101 that stars Winona Ryder by Daniel Waters, the guy who wrote Heathers, where you can tell that the poor guy had one street of a set to work on in some back lot. So they just keep doing the same over and over and over from different angles. And Mallrats suffers a little bit from that too. Like, you can tell that they didn't have the whole mall. They only had a few select shops. Now the music shop behind the Trish the Dish scene looks fairly legit. So maybe the mall was partially open and they were lucky on a few of those shots. Because like the hairdresser shop and the music shop look open. But, the rug shop and the cookie shop, even the pet shop, they don't look like they're open for business. They look like movie sets without enough money. But that's not Kevin's fault. He did the best he could with the budget he was given. And him and Mosier, they probably worked their butts off on this movie. They probably lived at that mall. And you know what? In 1995, if someone said they were going to give me $6 million to make a movie, I'd have made a movie just like Mallrats. So I'm not saying I hate this movie. I'm just saying that when you look at it with new eyes, it does have a lot of problems, a lot of just weirdness to it. God, I just hate what they did to Jay in this movie. And to some degree, Kevin Smith, Silent Bob's character becomes this I don't know, almost silent movie actor where he's very, his face has big expressions and he's like this lovable drug dealer. I don't know. Like Jay and Silent Bob are drug dealers. That's not glossed over because at the end, Jay gets rid of the contestants on the dating show by giving them drugs. And yet they're portrayed as like these Rosencrantz and Guildenstein of the mall, where they're like, well, we're going to bumble our way through another adventure. Well, they're drug dealers. They're drug dealers. I don't like what they did with Willem. I know that Willem in the first movie, Snowball and Clerks, becomes the guy who can't see the 3D picture of the sailboat, and that's the whole plot of what he does. And that's one of those things that it was funny for a couple of scenes, but like by the end of 90 minutes, you're just let him see the stupid sailboat. And I know that that's the plot. Like he's going to knock the railing that knocks the tape that lived in the house that Jack built. I get all that. I get it because I know how scripts are put together. I've written a few myself. But it just comes like that's it. His whole story arc is he didn't see the sailboat, and then he doesn't even see it. Maybe if he knocked his head, knocked the tape, and then looked over and said, I see it. I see the sailboat. I knocked myself in the head. And then they reveal he's really looking at a sailboat. Like there's a sailboat in the mall that's like win me with a entry form box. Maybe that would have been different, but they don't have that kind of money. And some of the editing is real choppy, like I said. The scenes between T.S. and Brandy in the beginning that are intercut with her dad naked doing kung fu. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I know it sets up that he's out of balance and you're not supposed to like him because he's doing naked kung fu for some reason. But it just, editing-wise, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, all of a sudden, we're seeing something else entirely. And, the Ben Affleck character hates Brody because he has no shopping agenda and wants to beat him up the whole movie. Like, I know you got to have a bully. You got to have a Biff. And Affleck's a great Biff, especially because this is really early in his career, and he's kind of doughy, and he's really imposing in size. But they're never shown, like, why he hates him so much other than in dialogue, I don't like people without a shopping agenda. Well, that's it? Well, you could beat up anybody in the movie. The movie's called Mallrats. No one has a shopping agenda. And some of the other stuff's just weird. The scene that's pretty funny where Brody's talking about where to put your arm when you're spooning. Like, and then the clerk says, I know how he feels. That's all pretty funny, except he talks about the wrong arm. If you're spooning somebody, the arm on top is fairly comfortable. It's the arm on bottom that falls asleep and that you need a place for it to go. And why even now they make beds with a slit so you can stick your arm in it. I'm not kidding. Look it up on Google, Jeremy. They make a slit so you can put your arm in it so that it doesn't fall asleep. So that scene's a little wonky in that you're like, well, isn't he talking about the other arm? And then it's over. So you're moved on to something else, right? But the Trish the Dish sequence, like, I know why it's there for the plot. I know that she's going to have sex with all these guys and tape that so that we can use the tape later. But why would a girl on a book research project with the full blessing of her parents, knowing she has to have sex with all these men from some age to some age, suddenly having sex with Affleck is illegal? Like, isn't there a waiver or something? Like, it's just really weird because everybody's talking about having sex with her. And anybody that has sex with the 15-year-old schoolgirl should go to jail. Everybody. Not just the one guy that we hate in the movie. So all of it's really sloppy writing. Like, we're told to believe something because we're told, and that's the way it's going to be. Even if we try to argue, like, well, that's not really logical. No, that's the movie. That's the movie we're making. Okay. And I've already said I don't really care for Jason Lee's character in it. I don't care for Jeremy London's character in it. Watch the end of the movie where he's on the dating show with her, and this is finally his one shot to make up with her. And it's really badly directed, too, because we only get a one shot of Brandy and a one shot of T.S. We never get the full shot of the game show while they're talking, and it's really like, this must have been filmed on different days or something. But watch how he talks to her. Like, he's never apologetic. He just yells at her, you shouldn't let your father dictate when you're going to break up with your boyfriend, like all this stuff. And it's like, well, what girl would respond to that? Me, the audience member, as a guy, I'm not responding to it. So the woman in question should just get up and go, look, dude, you're yelling at me because I broke up with you and somehow that's not what you would have done. So I'm supposed to, I take you back and we'll get married on the Jaws attraction. It's so illogical. He's such a jerk from opening scene to end scene. He never changes. In fact, he even gets worse. Like he's a big jerk. And the thing with Brody's character is that we sort of get the idea that Shannon Doherty's character likes that he's a jerk because the meaner he is to people, the bigger her smile. And I'm not sure what that says about her. Like this poor guy Gil, Brian, that we really like from Clerks, and he's playing, I think, Dante's cousin or something, somebody named Hicks. He's a brother, a cousin or something. And he's saying nice things to her. And the nicer he is, the more mean Brody is to him. And I know as the audience, we're supposed to be on Brody's side because we've spent the whole movie with him. And this other guy is being very flowery and very complimentary and everything that we're not supposed to be into because we're Brody, we're the audience. But Brody comes off as just a bully. He just tells this guy, shut the F up over and over again. And it's like, well, this is how the game is played, dude. I don't know what's going on and why you're so angry. Why is Brody so angry at everybody? I have no problem with angry characters in movies. They're usually pretty funny, but they're always tempered by other characters around them that are semi-normal. And we're also rarely asked to identify with the really angry guy. Everybody in Fight Club is angry, but they have moments where they step back and go, this is why we're doing this. We're going to fight each other because we have no purpose, because we were raised by single moms, and we're angry at the system for allowing our fathers to walk out on us and do this to us and create a whole generation of men with no direction. But Brody's just angry because he's Brody. He yells because they don't have boards in the comic bags. He yells because he needs free soda at the mall. Like, what's going on? What is this? And the scene that everybody remembers from Mallrats is the stink palm scene. And it is funny. The stink palm scene is funny. But watch the movie today and see how long it goes on for. That stink palm sequence is the whole end of the movie. From the moment he stink palms Svenning is sick and grotesque the rest of the movie. And it's like, gross out stuff like that should be hit and miss. And again, I know from the mechanics of the script that we need to take Svenning out so that when T.S. and Brody take over the dating show, he can't just get up and stop it. Because if it was Svenning normal, he would just get up and throw them out. But because he's incapacitated from vomiting, he can't get up and stop them. So I get why these things happen. But maybe the problem is that they're just not good enough. There needs to be raise the stakes, better things to do. And even if they did raise the stakes or come up with more ingenious ways of sabotage, we don't care. Or at least I don't care because I don't like these characters. I like Dante because we've all been forced to go to work on a day that we don't want to go. But these guys are just at the mall to cause trouble for everybody. And I guess maybe I was just too old. And isn't that sad at 23, 24, too old for a movie like Mallrats? Because they're just not likable guys. They're abusing everything in the mall. Even Joey Lauren Adams' character at one point is trying on underwear over and over again. And the person in me simply said, I hope she's going to buy those because that's really unsanitary to put those back on the shelf. Now, as a guy, I enjoy that scene. She's very good looking, she's incredibly uber sickly thin, but she's very hot in it. And she's trying on underwear and looking at her own butt. I mean, that's very sexy. And we get to see her topless, and you can see why Kevin fell for her and had to write his next movie for her. Like, we get all that. And she's got that cute little baby voice. You know, we all like that. But if all you're thinking of is, oh my God, that's unsanitary, then you're out of the movie. And I'm out of the movie. I'm out of the mall. That's a bummer. I don't want to be out of the mall. And they do go out of the mall. They do go to the Dirt Mall, which is the flea market. And there's a really neat scene where TS tries on a Clerks production hat. And that's, you know, that's for us, the fans. There's a whole lot of gimmies for the fans. And Kevin's really good about that. And that's, again, that's why this movie has a following. You know, because it's connected to Clerks. It's connected to the View Askew universe. So it gets to be included. Like, hey, Clerks, get in. Hey, Chasing Amy, get in here. And Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, get in the car. Clerks 2, right over here. Mallrats. Come on, Mallrats. Yes, you're part of it too. No, come on, hurry up. That's what it is. It gets dragged along. And it doesn't fit the rest of the movies. The tone is all over the place. It has that weird American Graffiti wrap-up where we get to know the fates of all of our characters. And we get to see poor Ben Affleck, who's been trying to anally rape most of the women in this movie. He gets to have his own version in prison. Like, it's really weird. Like, what did he do so bad? Except try to woo a girl and have sex with her. I mean, that's what 20-something guys do, right? But he's the bad guy because he represents the mall and the authority at the mall because he works for a living. How does Brody get all those comics? I know his mom's paying for rent at the house and he's got a Sega system, but who buys all those comics? I bought a lot of comics in the early 90s. Man, did I buy a lot of comics. I bought so many comics that I recognized every comic artist in the opening credits because I bought all their work. Mike Allred, J. Scott Campbell. Oh, man, did I love me some J. Scott Campbell. And when they show Joey Lauren Adams in the Gen 13 costume, I prayed that was in the movie. Oh, can we put her in a Fairchild costume from Gen 13, please? Can we? No, sorry. It's just the credits. Oh, bummer. Oh, well. And we get a really fun cameo from Stan Lee, who is the moral center of this movie and the only sane voice anywhere. And he tells, come on, true believers. He tells him the story, and Brody is supposed to glean some insight from it and stop talking about superhero genitalia, which is fun because, a lot of people want to ask Stan those kind of questions, and he politely rebuffs them, which is really nice. And it is great to have a guy like that in this movie. But the rest of it, not so much. Not so much. I don't understand the topless psychic scene. I know it's in there to get some more nudity in the movie to ensure that R rating because maybe the language wasn't salty enough. And, it is. And what's interesting is that the salty language in Clerks seems fairly organic. And the salty language in Mallrats, God, it's all so forced. And it's all so forced because a lot of it comes out of just anger. Again, Brody's an angry guy all the way through this movie. And he's almost the archetype of every character Adam Sandler has played. Like, if they had made Mallrats a few years later, Adam Sandler would have played that part. Because Adam Sandler only plays guys who are silent or full of murderous rage. And that's Brody. Like, he's just angry. He screams the F word. What the F is this? And I don't identify with people like that. I don't like to be around people like that. So 90 minutes in a movie trapped with that guy is more than enough for me. And when he has sex with her in the elevator, you just want to say, like, well, what's going on here? Who's right and who's wrong? What kind of signals is she sending out? She's going to have sex with him in the elevator, but she still broke up with him. She hates him. She loves him. Like, everybody deserves all of the misery that they bring upon themselves in this movie. It doesn't make any sense. And I know it's not supposed to. I know in the end, as we wrap up this episode, that Mallrats is supposed to be this fun romp through the mall during the day where the Easter Bunny gets savagely beaten and Willem, who can't see the sailboat, destroys the poor salesman's kiosk, and we bang on the glass at poor kittens who are actually shown like responding to it. But it's just a romp because it's tempered with scenes where Jay and Silent Bob use Batman's gun to grapple themselves into the air, or he flies through the air as Batman and bursts through the wall of the store again and again. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And again, look, I'm the one in the wrong here because I know that a lot of people really like this movie, and it bothers me to sit for nearly an hour and tear it apart. But that's film, man. That's film. You know, watch Heathers. Heathers is a fantastic movie, and it's very well directed. And Michael Lehman, after Heathers, was brought into the studio the way Kevin Smith was brought into the studio system, and it was like, what movie are we going to do next? Kevin Smith thankfully picked a script he wrote. You know, he picked Mallrats. Michael Lehman was given Hudson Hawk, and we know how that turned out. God, that's a terrible movie. Badly directed, badly edited, badly acted. So at least when Kevin made the jump into the studio system, he didn't bite off more than he could chew. You know, a $6 million movie set in a single, for the most part, location, you can handle that. Yeah, the tone's all over the place, but the movie's called Mallrats, and showing a movie about people doing nothing in a mall, at that, it succeeds. It really does. But I do have a question for you. If the goal of T.S., Brody, and Jay and Silent Bob was to pull the pin so that the set would fall, were they worried about killing anybody? Were they worried about killing anybody? That I have to ask. And why does Priscilla Barnes, who already ruined License to Kill, Sanchez, right? Why does she eat the nipple that she pulls off of her? I don't understand. Is it like it's gummy, like she has 100 in a box? Like, is it gum? Like, I don't know. It makes zero sense other than it's just weird for weird's sake. And I'm a fan of that, don't get me wrong. But in this case, I have no idea. I know that for whatever reason, she's fulfilling the Silent Bob part because she's the one who stops and gives them the advice they need to hear so that they can then go and make the right decision. And in Clerks, it's Silent Bob who does that. Of course, it's too late in Clerks. But in Mallrats, she's the one. It doesn't make any sense. I have no idea. And why it's Priscilla Barnes, I have no idea. Maybe, we all watched Three's Company, and maybe Kevin had like a moment where it was like, we can hire this woman to be topless from Three's Company? Oh, we're all about it. And if that's the case, it should have been Joyce DeWitt, if you know what I'm saying. Anywho, I think I've trashed it enough. I'm sorry if I upset you, because I know I just talked to somebody about doing this, and Jeremy said, one of the listeners said, but I like that movie. I grew up on it, and, I'm sorry. We have to talk about what we have to talk about. The good news is just like the public did to Kevin Smith, when we talk about his next film, it's going to be much better. Because whatever lessons he learned on Mallrats and whatever doors Clerks opened that Mallrats then closed, when he delivered Chasing Amy, he decided to make a movie much more personable, much more personal, and still in the comics and pop culture realm, but a more mature film. And Chasing Amy is a fantastic movie, and I'm going to watch it and get a refresher course before I start talking about it. That way I know what I'm doing. But, God bless Brian O'Halloran for playing Gil, because it's a thankless part. Where's Jeff Anderson? I don't know. I've listened to the commentary a few years back from Mallrats. I watched all the deleted stuff. So, I enjoy these movies, and I enjoy immersing myself in the View Askew-universe. I really do. But I'm not sure where Jeff Anderson was, if they offered him a cameo and he turned it down or whatever. Maybe he was the smart one. Maybe he was like, look, that's not my thing. I don't want to be in that. But Brian Dante, he wants to be an actor. He wants to be in these movies. He ended up making Vulgar, a story about the View Askew clown logo, which I actually kind of enjoyed as sick as it is, and it is sick. But hey, Mallrats, maybe I've inspired you to go watch it, and in that case, I've done my job. If I've inspired you to unsubscribe, I'm so sorry, but we have to be honest. I have to tell you what I think of these movies. And like I said, for a movie like Batman and Robin or Attack of the Clones, everybody's nodding. Yes, it's terrible. Yes. Mallrats, not so much. A lot of people really enjoy this movie. I know Adrian Romo, who just finished his shower, is very angry with me. Not only because he likes this movie and he once came to my house dressed as Willem with the soda and the lunch bag, but he's the guy that bought me this movie when it was really hard to find. So I'm sorry, but that's 91 Reasons, We're a no-holds-barred look at pop culture. Whether you like it or love it, we're going to talk about it. And as you can see and hear, my voice is disintegrating after Halloween Haunt and Disneyland and talking for nearly an hour after being up all night watching this movie. I'm going to go die. I am Jeff Tucker. I am the voice you hear. We want to thank you for listening. Subscribe to us on iTunes. That's the best way to support the show. Tell your friends. Leave a review. Tell us how much you love it or hate it. It's all good. I am the author of 3 books, The Sixth Key, The Lost Station, and my latest book, The Infinite Backward, all available on Amazon.com in either a beautiful paperback version. And you know what, Jeremy? I'm sorry I forgot to sign your copy at Halloween Haunt. We just got so busy doing the season pass. But you can also get my books as a Kindle download for a mere 99 cents. It's the deal of the day. They are a series. They are 1, 2, and 3. They continue a single story. Book 4 I'm working on right now. The Ice Temple will be out next year sometime. And I'm very excited about that because I love my books and I love my characters. But I also love this podcast and I love talking about pop culture. And we're going to keep doing it again and again and again. Forever. Well, not forever. But for a long time. Because I enjoy this. And I got lots more to talk about. So the next episode, who knows? We could talk about Chasing Amy. We could talk about Batman Begins. We could talk about something completely different. It all depends on what the heck is going on in my life at the time. So thanks for listening. And this is 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?